What up, man? You know the vibes. It's your boy Earl of Pearl, and welcome to another live episode of the Ultimate 216 Show. If you woke up this morning, you already won. It's 5 p.m. somewhere. I hope somebody has done something already that their future selves would thank them for it, man. Remember to like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel. We got a stack show for you all. The Guardians avoid the sweep. They put 11 runs on the board. Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com is going to join me in a few minutes to discuss everything she observed today from day 2 of the Cleveland Browns mandatory minicamp. And we have a conversation about role models and inspiration. Before we get started, man, make sure y'all drop where y'all watching from in the comment section. Last week when we was on the show, we had somebody pull up from Amsterdam. We had somebody pull up from South Africa. We had people watching in Alabama, in Atlanta, in California. Of course, right here in Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, Dayton, all that good stuff. So if you're watching the Ultimate 216 Show live, man, drop where you're watching from, man. We'll shout you out towards the end of the show. Don't forget, like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Make sure you check off all the spinoff shows as well. Ashley Bastock will join me in mere minutes as we get started with Cleveland Browns OTAs. But I saw something pretty interesting yesterday about Shedeur Sanders. He attended the 13U Midwest Youth Elite Football Conference 7-on-7 championship between Glenville Elite, Ginn Elite, and the Wolfpack. This was Lincoln West High School. And it got me to thinking about, athletes being role models and inspirations. And I want to have a conversation with you all real quick about how do you all feel and view athletes as role models? What's your opinions of that? And if you're a parent watching this episode and you have kids and your kid is a diehard sports fan and he or she might be looking up to an athlete as a role model, how do you approach that as a parent? I remember growing up as a kid, like that's something that my father was just not on, right? Like he was not going to allow me to allow a stranger to have that much influence on my decision making, on my behavioral, or on my behavior, just things of that nature. He would tell me all the time, like, I'm your role model. The people that's helped raising you, that's your role model. Don't expect to gain too much from an athlete that you watch from afar because you don't know these men and women. You don't know what they do when these cameras turn off and things like that. And that's something that I always carry with me. And if you heard me speak prior, if you heard me speak on other platforms and other episodes, I'm quick to tell people, man, I ain't grow up trying to be like Mike. I ain't grow up wanting to be like, Ken Griffey Jr. and things like that. Like I grew up trying to be like my dad. My dad was my hero. My dad was my role model. And I feel like it's a fine line between athletes being role models and inspirations. Now, the flip side of that coin is, for some of these young men and women, they might not have anybody positive to look up to. And so how you carry yourself as an athlete and how present you are, it might make the difference in, that person being motivated or depressed. And I posted about Shedeur, being at Lincoln West, and I saw the 13-year-olds from the Ginn Elite Muni League team. They was overly excited. And one of the moms tweeted at me and she said, this is something my son has not stopped talking about since he met Shedeur. And she found it that he woke up the next morning doing push-ups. You know what I mean? Or he's been taking his workouts extra serious since then. And this is not the first time that Shedeur has showed himself, in the community, at the schools, dealing with the youth since he's been here in Cleveland. And me personally, I just think it's very, very important to do so because, as somebody that comes from the inner city and understands all that entails, you see a lot of violence, you see a lot of sold, a lot of drugs being used. And sometimes you don't have anything positive to look forward to. Some people, the truth is, they only know that 2 or 3 mile radius in the community that they grew up in. They don't know anything else. And so for somebody like Shedeur, who really don't come from that background, right? Shedeur comes from a home that had 2 parents, 2 parents that worked hard. He grew up in the suburbs. His family had some money. And so he didn't have to go through some of those economical challenges that life might offer some people. And yet he still makes it his business to show face and to be present because he understands how being an inspiration to these young men and women, how it can have a huge impact down the road. And it was just something that had me thinking, do you believe that more athletes should embrace the role of being somebody that's a role model or somebody that's, that creates inspiration. I like to consider myself that create somebody that creates inspiration. Just knowing where I come from, knowing my backstory, knowing how much I've overcame, and knowing that there are young kids that grew up in the same neighborhood as me or similar neighborhoods who might be interested in taking this step, right? And because they've never seen many black faces on TV or heard many black voices on the radio, that they might be discouraged that they can do so. And then you look up and you see somebody like me who's not a former athlete, who for a very long time worked a regular job, put myself in position to do this job. I like to go back to those communities and I like to speak to the youth and I like to like be present to let them know, like, if I can do it, if I can overcome some of the things I've overcome, you can do the same thing. And so I think it's important for all of us, not just the athletes, but especially us locally here in Cleveland that might be doing something that has a significant impact or can like create change. I think it's important for us to be present and not just, post about it from a distance. So I'm gonna go through some of these comments, man, before I bring Ashley in. I see her waiting in the queue. Chantel says, "Hey, Earl 12 is the man. He's dominating in minicamp." Yeah, I can't wait to talk to Ashley about that. Shout out to Chantel. 12 is the man. She is watching from Ashland, Ohio. DC says, "Let's go, Gabriel." I heard Dillon Gabriel had a great day today as well. I pray 12 get traded. The Browns are a BS organization, and the way they treated him is wrong. This is why the Browns will continue to be the worst team in the league. Broncos fans for life said 12 seems like a very confident, very respectful person. Don't know why he gets dragged. And Greg says 92 through the fan already discussing a trade involving Miami and Gabriel. They have coined KP Kenny Pack as it's Kenny Pack it up. Yo, that's kind of crazy, man. Look, we ain't gonna keep her waiting too much longer. Let's bring in Ashley after a word from our sponsor. It's a good time to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by the Buckeye Credit Union. If you're unfamiliar with the Buckeye Credit Union, let me introduce you to the financial friend you didn't know you needed until right now. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local brand that offers a wide range of products from saving accounts to mortgages and auto loans. They have some of the lowest rates around and are committed to serving Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland location is in Shaker Heights, but there are 5 brick and mortar locations across the state. Basically, Buckeye State Credit Union is here to help make your life easier. They make banking more convenient, always putting the customer first, so you leave feeling cared for, valued, and respected. At Buckeye State Credit Union, our core values are what set us apart: connect, simplify, and adapt. These values make Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. For more information, head over to buckeyecu.com for more information. Again, that's Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. And with that, it is time to bring in Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com. She writes for the Cleveland Browns. She writes for the Cleveland Cavaliers. She is an alumni of John Carroll University. You see her X handle, man. Make sure y'all go check her out. Is she there? There she is. What up?
I'm right here.
How
are you? I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on here for my first time. I know the lighting is not great in the lobby where I am. They took my picnic table from outside where I was going to do this. So I hope everyone watching just bear with me. I'm sorry the sun is like shining in my face right now.
No, you good, man. I'm more than happy to have you. You and I have connected a lot. This is the first time we get to work together. So hopefully you enjoy yourself and you come back. We might as well get into it. Ain't no point of us wasting any time. The 4 quarterbacks, from your assessment, from your observation, what did you think of the work that those 4 young men or those 4 men put in today?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that stands out today is this is the first time that we got to see Shedeur Sanders take reps with the second team. And I think to me that's indicative of some of the good work he's already done, that we've already gotten to see through OTA practices and things like that. I think, yes, we've only really before today gotten to see him go up against like 3rd and 4th string defense with 3rd and 4th string receivers. But in most of those instances, he has made the throws. And I think when you make the throws, that earns you more opportunity. Now, we only have one more day out here for minicamp. I feel like we probably won't get to see Shedeur earn many, like really first team reps until we're in training camp. But he performed well today when he was out there with the second team. He had some nice throws. He was connecting well with his tight ends. When he wasn't with the second team, Gage Larvadane is still a guy he has been finding repeatedly these last 3 weeks. He's a name I've been writing and saying over and over again when talking about Shedeur. So overall, I think that was the biggest takeaway from today was Shedeur did get some work with the second team. I thought he threw the ball well when he was in that situation. And then we saw Dillon Gabriel in that same situation and that move the ball 11 on 11 period, go with the third stringers. And I thought Dillon looked, as you would hope, maybe the best I have seen him look so far in this spring and summer. So those are, I think, the two big takeaways. And Joe Flacco, just another lighter day for him. We didn't see him take really many team reps. So to be expected, because I think the other three guys are who they really have to focus on and see, okay, who can do what's working in this offense, and where are we going to go when we come back in late July for training camp?
We talk about Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel both being really good learners. And it sounds like from everybody that we've spoken to throughout this process that Shedeur Sanders seems to be improving with each and every practice. He talked himself yesterday about, just assessing what he did wrong, going back in, watching the tape, coming back out and trying to improve on those things. Ashley, from the voluntary OTAs, from the 2 days just at the mandatory camp, how much improvement have you seen in Shedeur from each practice that has taken place?
Yeah, I don't think for me, it's really, we've only gotten to see him in 5 total practices now, and that includes rookie minicamp, which I came away from all the practices thinking, hey, this guy looks pretty good. Now, there were practices like the final OTA period, for example. I thought it was a rough day for Kenny Pickett, a rough day for Dillon Gabriel. What we're seeing is that's kind of by design because those guys have been given more on their plate as a result of the Browns trying to figure out what this offense is going to look like. Like, this is basically a new offense they're installing. There are similar concepts to what they ran 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but for all intents and purposes, this is a new install they are going through. So there's more on those guys' plates. And I've come away not necessarily being like, oh, he's improved on X, Y, or Z. I think we just have such a small sample size. But I think Shedeur has done everything I thought he would do. And I think it's why I was, adamant for a very long time. I wanted the Browns to take him at number 2 overall, which obviously didn't happen. They wound up with him a different way, though. So for me, I think it's less about him improving and just like going out there, and every time he's given a different opportunity like he was today, I think he steps up to the moment. And we saw that today when he threw 3 or 4 completions in that move the ball period against tougher competition than what we've seen him go against so far.
What would be the one thing that you say Dillon Gabriel does really, really well? And what's the one thing that really stands out to you as, okay, he really, really needs to work on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the number one thing that you worry about with Dillon that we have seen, is batted balls. And it's not something he struggled with in college, but, we've seen Mason Graham get a hand on the football a couple times through these practices. So that to me is the number one thing. Like, obviously you can't change how tall you are, but it's just getting a better feel for that pocket and what an NFL D-line rush is going to look like. And what I've seen from Dillon that is good is, number one, I love his throwing motion. He's got this really compact, clean throwing motion that I think you saw on film from him, especially at Oregon. And I think you see it now when he's out on the practice field. So for me, I think that's really it. Like, his fundamentals, I think, like Shedeur too. Shedeur has really strong fundamentals. And I think you do see that with Dillon, but now it's about, okay, the size component of it all. When you have that D-line coming at you, this is the first week we've seen that D-line at full strength. And you notice it when Myles Garrett and Dillon talked yesterday about his eyes got a little wide when Myles broke through. Today, it was Alex Wright. I think he really has to get a better feel for what those edge rushers are doing. And that can go for probably Shedeur too, quite honestly.
Y'all was laughing when I seen that video yesterday, Ashley, like of
Yeah,
Miles busting through, and it was just like, man, if old shit was a person,
yeah.
that was Dillon Gabriel
And
yesterday.
for Dewan Jones probably too, right? Dewan, that was on Dewan's side over on the left
Yeah,
side, and yeah, that is a. I joked, I wrote it in my story yesterday. Dillon expressed the sentiment that I think every quarterback who has walked through these doors since like 2018 has said, which is, I'm just happy he's on my team. Like, that's what all these quarterbacks say when they get to Cleveland. God knows we've gone through a handful of them the last couple of years, and everyone always gets asked about Miles. And I think Dillon Gabriel got to experience that yesterday for really like the first time.
you mentioned Mason Graham. A lot of the talk, and rightfully so, has been on the quarterbacks and everything that's going on the offensive side of the ball. But the number 5 overall pick, how has
Yeah.
he done the last 2 days of this mandatory camp?
You know, I think it still is so hard to watch the D line because, like, guys aren't in pads and they're not hitting. It's hard to get really a feel for anything that is happening in the trenches, good or bad. But with Mason, I think I continue to be impressed by his leverage. That is like the number one thing people talk about. And also his coachability. I've spent a lot of time watching Mason Graham over the last few weeks. I would say I've probably spent more time than most people just because we have that luxury, right? There's so many of us that work at cleveland.com. So I've gotten to spend some time away from the quarterbacks and go and I'll watch Mason even just going through drills with Jacques Césaire, their position coach, and you'll hear Jacques tell him something and he implements it his very next rep. Like he goes hard out there on those, whether it's a sled drill, whether it's a bag drill, anything those guys are doing, he's playing at 100%. And I think that's what you need from a guy on the interior that you want to be disruptive. And other than that, we've seen him get his hands on a couple of balls, nothing in the last couple of days here, but we've seen him bat passes down at the line, and I think that's also something you really want from the inside of your line.
Let's go back on the offensive side of the ball. Diontae Johnson spoke to the media today. You know, a lot of us, you know, we made a big deal, quite honestly, of him not being there at the voluntary portion of OTAs. We seen him get some work in with Shedeur Sanders. You know, just talk about Diontae Johnson and how he looked, because this is the first time, well, yesterday was the first time that, you know, he got an opportunity to be seen. How has he looked since you've had your eyes on him?
Yeah, I'm still fascinated by this move, but I think ultimately for the Browns, it's a low risk move in terms of, okay, you didn't give up a lot of capital in order to get him, right? And I always think about guys they acquire in those terms, like how risky was this because of what they gave up or what they are giving up? And that's just not there. But today, when we actually talked to him, I thought what was so interesting is the Browns were the only team that called him. And this is a guy who had 5 good years with the Steelers, and then last year he's bounced around between 3 different teams. And he talked a lot about, you know, the narrative around him and that it was one bad year. But really, like, I think this is his last ditch effort to make a career or continue his NFL career, because it's bad news. Like, he was a productive receiver and only one team called him, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
not great.
yeah.
That's not great. It's not what I expected. I think everyone was surprised when he said that. So I do think, like, hey, this might be his last chance, but I do wonder, you know, it's hard to know. This is our first time talking to him, but it was seeming more like a deflecting away from that conversation, which maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. But I think, like, ideally, you would want to hear some like accountability or ownership in that situation. Like, if I was running a media training or like a PR clinic, that's how I would say would be best to communicate about your situation. And he just didn't really want to talk about last year that much. And that, coupled with not being here at OTAs, it's kind of like, okay, like nothing's happened yet, but what's this going to be like the next few months with him here? I am really curious. I don't have like a hard thought out prediction or opinion, but I'm certainly not like necessarily jumping up and down being like, yes, this is an immediate contributor, because we just don't know based on last year.
Yeah, I'm in the department of, you know, wishing for the best but preparing for the worst when it comes to
Yeah.
Diontae Johnson. And that's just the hard truth. Like when you have, you know, I've had friends who just recently retired from the NFL and didn't have really positive things to say about him. And then when you
Yeah.
hear the narratives of him being a me first guy and a
Yes.
bad teammate. And then you kind of approach your first situation with the media in the way that you did. It was kind of a hair scratching situation, which
It
leads me to the
is.
next question. There are still some quality free agent wide receivers. How likely is it that Andrew Berry makes another move at the wide receiver position?
I know fans are probably not going to like this, but I don't think it's that likely. And I say that because every year for the last like 3-4 years, I've looked at this wide receiver room and said, they have to add more, right? Like this can't be it, right? And even last year, when we still didn't really know what they had in Jeudy, right? Like I think Jerry's on the right track, and this maybe was the best thing that happened to him in his career was coming here. But at the time when we don't know, I'm like, well, if Amari Cooper gets hurt, what are you going to do? And then they traded Amari Cooper. I just think for whatever reasons, this front office and Andrew Berry have pretty much always been higher on their receiving core than the fan base has, or even than I have as a journalist, like looking at the room objectively. I think they're always banking on, oh, we can get more out of that guy. I think like this year it's going to be Diontae Johnson. Like, oh, we can get more out of that guy. But what if you can't? And then like my other question to that is Ced Tillman, he's still working his way back from a minor injury. He missed 6 games last year with a concussion. What if, God forbid, Ced gets another concussion and it takes him even longer to come back? Because we see that often, right? A guy goes through the protocol a second, third, fourth time. It can oftentimes take them longer to clear the NFL concussion protocol when they get subsequent concussions. So I have perpetually been worried, I think, about this pass catching core since like 2022, and it's not going anywhere. And I also just don't think we're going to be in for another splashy move there.
I ain't told you my theory yet, have I?
No.
So if was a fifth, we'll all be drunk. But if one of these quarterbacks that we have actually pans out to be worth a damn, and the Browns don't have to spend that capital on a quarterback next year, you take one of those first round picks, you flip it over to 2027, so you got 2 in 2027, and then you trade up as far as you got to trade up to get Jeremiah Smith. That should be the goal.
I like that. I like that plan. I am a fan of that plan because I think obviously Jeremiah Smith could have come out in the draft this year and he would have been the best receiver in the draft. So I am a fan of that. And I do think like I've wondered the last few years how much the draft has been a part of their problem with their pass catching core because you don't have a first round pick. And first round receivers are usually pretty good, right? We've seen those guys in the 2023 draft class, and the Browns didn't have any swings at the plate there, which I think was unfortunate for building out that room. And I will say, like, assuming Jerry Jeudy is just as good or better than he was last year, that alone is going to be a break. But I do think you need to keep adding around him and seeing what else is out there. But they haven't had that chance really at the draft to build out that room. So I'm with you on that plan. I would take it in a heartbeat at this point.
A couple more minutes with Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com. So I'm going through the chat here. You heard some of the comments I was reading. There's been rumors, unexpected trade rumors that's been swirling around. Tell me if any of this stuff have any legs. Let's start off with the Dillon Gabriel Miami Dolphins. Rumor has it that they have interest in adding him to that quarterback room.
I truthfully have not heard any of that here. I would be shocked if they let go of Dillon Gabriel because this is how I've been talking about Dillon Gabriel with people when fans ask me, oh, like how could he be ahead of Shedeur Sanders? This is somebody who wasn't even on our radar. And I'm like, well, like for the Browns, he was a 3rd round pick to them. I do not know how many other teams were going to get ready to take Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round. I think most teams maybe thought he was a day 3 pick, and the Browns really fell in love with him and didn't want to take that chance that by the next time they would pick in day 3, that he would be gone. They did not want to let another team get him. So I would be shocked if they let him get away personally and just shipped him off. Now, in terms of does Miami have interest, that I have no idea on, just because I don't speak to anybody in the Dolphins. But, I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they also really like Dillon Gabriel, and the Browns swooped up ahead of them and drafted him in day 2, and the Dolphins thought they would have until day 3. But no, I would be shocked if he's not here, quite honestly, at this point, knowing what the Browns put in terms of a day 2 pick to get him.
And then the second one, which is probably a bigger hell no, I'm seeing in here that the Detroit Lions is rumored to be interested in Shedeur Sanders. If the Browns have to get rid of one of the quarterbacks, I'll say this: we know our owner, Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is the last quarterback on this roster that's going any damn where. Is that fair to say?
You know, I guess in general, I'm always like, never say never, right? Because I do think like, I don't think necessarily there's any legs to that rumor, right? But what I'll say about like keeping 4 quarterbacks in general, because people are always interested in this, like I think the Browns will try to hold on to 4 quarterbacks as long as humanly possible and then see if they can trade one of them. Like I don't think that's going to be Shedeur necessarily, right? But I think we saw them try to do that last year. They really wanted somebody to bite on Snoop Huntley or Jameis Winston, and people just didn't. And obviously, they just had to let Snoop go. They couldn't get anything for him, unfortunately. But I think these guys are going to try to hold on to all 4. And if they can get into the season and somebody gets hurt, and hey, I don't know, somebody wants Kenny Pickett, like, here, give me a 3rd round pick for him or whatever you're going to say. Like, I don't know. So to me, that's kind of my thinking on it. I think there's going to be a lot of rumors just because this QB room has so many guys in it right now. Shedeur in general is going to be such a talking point for the national media. I really think we've only gotten a taste of it. And I think you're going to hear these scenarios pop up. I would be wary of anything you hear just because I really don't think anything is on the horizon with these guys and trading somebody away right now.
Anything else that stood out to you? Any player that stood out to you that seems to be doing his thing in the first 2 days that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, you know, I think I've gotten some questions about the pass catchers, like who besides Jeudy has looked really good. I'll say I think Harold Fannin has looked great every time I've seen him out there. That goes back to rookie minicamp. I think he catches like just about anything thrown his way. Already we've gotten to see that after the catch creation ability that I know the Browns loved in the pre-draft process and watching his BG film. And also the underrated name I'll say for people to keep an eye on is Jamari Thrash, their late draft pick from last year, because I think he made the most of some early reps when Diontae Johnson wasn't at the voluntary stuff. And again today, I think he maybe had one drop, but he just looks good. He is catching everything thrown his way lately. And as a rookie, we would watch him in practice and in training camp. Drops seem to be an issue for him, and it definitely has not been so far this spring.
Sweet. Well, Ashley, man, I appreciate you for joining me, taking time out your busy day. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We got to link up and do this more often.
Yeah, we do. We'll have plenty to talk about with this team. It's certainly the opportunity will be there.
All right, Ashley, I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Earl. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. That was Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com. As we move on, the final segment of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get into the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. They got player props, performance trends, and same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? Guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, of course, in the MVP SGA. FanDuel is giving you a 25% profit boost on the NBA Finals game. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As we move on to the final segment of our program, what did y'all think of the interview with Ashley? I thought she was solid. Y'all thought she gave some solid information. It seems like everybody that we talked to has come to the conclusion that Shedeur Sanders is just absolutely taking advantage of every single opportunity that he gets. And it seems like without really saying it, that he's outperforming Dillon Gabriel and soon will be working his way up that depth chart and eventually, get an opportunity to show what he can do once the season starts. I thought he had the perfect answer yesterday when he spoke to the media, when he talked about, like, listen, man, like, I'm trusting the process. I'm focused on the day. I'm focused on practice. I'm putting in work. Like, when that time come to play, that time will come. But up until then, let me keep preparing. Let me keep doing the things that I need to do. And we all know, man, like, when preparation meets opportunity, that's when beautiful things happen, man. Don't forget, like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So check this out, right? So this morning, I tweeted this. I was like, the Guardians, they finding new ways to frustrate fans. When the bats come alive, the pitching fall apart. When the arms show up, the offense disappears every single time. Well, today I was dead ass wrong on that front as the Cleveland Guardians, man. They really took care of business today. They put up 11 runs to avoid the sweep against the Cincinnati Reds. They won 11-2, improving their record to 35-32. This was one of those rare games where everything came together for the Cleveland Guardians, right? We know how it go. Y'all saw the tweet. We either get good pitching and no hitting, or we get some hitting and horrible pitching. But today, Logan Allen showed up and he showed out. He got the dub, pitched 6 innings, gave up 2 runs off 4 hits, struck out 6, walked just 1. The story of the day, though, Jose Ramirez, he drove in a run. He's been on base, I think, in now 35, 36, maybe 37 straight games. I don't have the number right in my head, forgive me, but I know it's been a lot. He'd been on base in a lot of games in a row. And Carlos Santana, it was 15 years ago today that he made his major league debut. He hit a grand slam that kind of secured the dub for the Guardians today. It was an opposite field grand slam as well, so he showed some power on that. Lane Thomas, he's been struggling. He hit an opposite field 3-run home run today. And, I think Angel Martinez drove in a run. So it was a good day. The Guardians got 13 hits, manufactured 11 runs. They gave up only 5 hits, only 2 runs to avoid being swept by Tito and the Cincinnati Reds. The next time the Guardians are in action will be Friday. They start this West Coast trip. They are going up against the Seattle Mariners. FanDuel don't have the line out for that. But the pitching matchup will be one Gavin Williams versus the GOAT, Luis Castillo. He ain't the GOAT, but he's a name that I know, and that boy, man, he can get the job done. So the Guardians finish out the homestand, avoiding being swept by the Cincinnati Reds. They're about to hit the road, man. Go through some of these comments as we get to the end of the show. Remember, like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I want to thank everybody who took time out their day to just pull up and watch us. Y'all dropped what y'all was where y'all was watching from. So, man, shout out to y'all. Let's see here. Cynthia said we got the perfect plan. B from Ohio, Shedeur is the best thing Cleveland got since Jim Brown. Fat Evan says y'all know he's the best in the locker room. Let's see what else we got here. Ian says Shedeur is like Baker. He will learn for a year in Cleveland and find success after they trade him. I don't really see the Cleveland Browns trading Shedeur Sanders. I know a lot of his personal fan base, the ones that feel like he's not really given fair opportunities or he's being mistreated or not covered properly, want him traded and get an opportunity elsewhere. I just don't see that happen. Like, Shedeur is doing numbers as far as content. His jersey sales is through the roof. He is like one of the most trending athletes right now. And if you live in Cleveland, if you're a fan of the Cleveland Browns, you know what type of time our owner be on. So I don't really foresee Shedeur Sanders going anywhere unless he's god awful. And I don't foresee him being god awful as a quarterback. So it looked like that marriage between Shedeur Sanders and Cleveland Browns is about to be a long one. Mom says I'm not watching Gabriel Pickett play, only Flacco and Shedeur. Mosley Taylor says if they know anything about football. Christian says every time I hear Pickett's name, I think about those gloves, man. Yeah, they say Kenny's hands are smaller in person than what they really is. EA Sports, Earl and Ashley, that's funny. That could be a good podcast show. Marie says that was a great interview. I respect the unbiased take. Shout out to Marie, man. She always pulling up, even if she don't agree with some of the things I had to say, she still be showing love and support. I definitely respect that. Scott says, good to have two authentic Clevelanders talking Cleveland Browns football. Scott, shout out to you. Ted says, I really like to know what more expectations have been put out there on the other 3 quarterbacks that isn't being required of Sanders. That would be good to know if that is the case. That's what's going on. Let's see what else is going on. My man Phil, let the Rooks cook. Shout out to Phil. Phil gifted like 50 million memberships in the chat today. Listen, if you want an Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show membership, the best way to get it for free is to be active and engaged in our chat on our flagship show that airs 11 to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. People like Phil, for example, when they feeling generous, they give you memberships. You get access to cool custom emojis. I got my own emoji. You can use that if you're a fan of myself. You get access to overtime. You get some cool badges to put next to your name. And we got some people who's really been a member since we started offering these memberships. So if you want to test out the memberships, the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show memberships, I encourage you, man, be active in that chat tomorrow. They always giving out memberships. Shout out to my guy Freddie B. He know what's going on. Phil, he know what's going on. Man, shout out to all y'all. Shout out to y'all for always showing love, always supporting me, always supporting the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show family. This has been another episode of the Ultimate 216 Show. Remember, man, be great and spread love. Being great comes with a price, and spread love is priceless. Till next Wednesday, I'm out. Peace. Love y'all.